taking inventory, taking inventory is a pre-planning step to take when you're contemplating your estate plan. And I talked about this earlier, but I want to just take this time to hone in on inventorying. What I want you to do is I want you to look at all of your assets and put them in a category. So, because many of you all may say, oh, I don't have much, or everything that I have is going to go to my wife or whatever, my spouse. But let's look at that because so many things affect property. You know, how did you get the property? Did you get the property as your own separate property? Uh, is it community property? In Texas, if property is acquired while the parties are married, then it's community properties, which means the husband and the wife own one half interest of the whole. If it's separate property, means that, okay, I acquired this by inheritance, or or I got this property before I was married to you, and I didn't take any of my wages or your wages to pay rent, mow the grass, then this way I keep this property distinctly as separate property. So many of you may be familiar with this terminology because we borrow this language from family law, which, upon a divorce, which is a dissolution of a marriage, we have to look at the characterization of particular property. And while we're talking about estate planning, we still have to talk about these family law terms, namely community property and separate property, because death in and of itself dissolves the marriage. So therefore we have the carryover of characterizing property. So you want to look at that property. So we're going to make several things. We're going to divide property up as to whether it's real property, personal property, or intellectual property. And then we're going to also look at that property to see whether or not it was community property or if it's separate property. And then we want to take a look-see at the our marital history. When we're making up this inventory, is this my first and only spouse, or were there previous spouses? And not so much that I'm concerned about the previous spouses. What we're looking to see is, are there children from spouses or persons other than your current spouse? Because if the property is separate property, then it gets divided a little differently than it does if it were community property. But you can avoid all of this characterization with having a will and just saying who gets what, because this other children outside of the marriage, none of that comes into play when we're talking about probating a will. But it does come into play if we are talking about not having a will and the person dying intestate. So that's my little primer on identifying assets. Be sure we can send you an inventory form so you can gather that information. It would be great for your own edification to know what you have, to characterize it, and to look and see about those children. because that may be incentive enough for you to say, okay, I need to do a will, and I need to designate A, B, or C, or I need to give it all to my cat, or whatever your decisions are. But you want to be the person to make those decisions as opposed to the court basically saying, okay, you did write a will, so this is what the statute says. Hope you find these tips helpful. Thank you.